Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Great Basin. Today's matchup is an epic matchup, and I think it's one that we'll be talking about for years to come, Chad.
You're right, Ryan. Land managers have been fighting invasive annual grasses for years, and for the most part, the grasses have been winning. In fact, invasives are riding a big winning streak, and a lot of folks are picking them to come out on top again this year.
So I guess the question is, with a matchup like this, is when you look at these two teams, you know, the land managers, the invasive annual grasses, what can you look at to determine who do you think is going to win this one?
Ryan, in a matchup like this, I think you have to look at the key players and what they can do. And when we're talking about invasive annual grasses, we're talking about cheatgrass and medusa head. These two can hurt you in so many ways. They can grow early, they can grow fast, and they steal resources needed by more desirable plants. If land managers are going to stop invasive annual grasses, they have to focus on stopping these two species.
So those are two species that are tough to deal with. And on the land manager side, though, what key players will they be looking for to help them out and help them get a victory in this contest?
Well, that's what makes today's matchup so intriguing, Ryan. The land managers have a new and exciting tool in EBIPM, or Ecologically-Based Invasive Plant Management.
EBIPM is really a science-based solution where we look at the underlying ecological processes and principles and try to direct plants to communities to something we like.
That's one big advantage that EBIPM gives you, is it combines science and ecology in a way that translates into big plays and big wins for the land manager.
Yeah, that's right. And big plays are something that the land managers need. You know, EBIPM has already given land managers some victories at the Circle Bar Ranch in Mitchell, Oregon. In fact, rancher Ben McGew has had EBIPM in the game on his ranch since about 2005, and he's seen a definite increase in the wins column.
There was just nothing but medusa head. And I am just really enthusiastic about this because we can go to some of those fields now and see pretty good grass growing and some alfalfa growing.
It certainly is impressive what EBIPM has done on that ranch. And with EBIPM in the game, Chad, do you think that land managers have a chance to win?
Absolutely, and when you take a look at some of this game film, I think you'll have to agree.
Knowledge is power. So when it comes to taking on invasive annual grasses, we can't just head out there and start throwing treatments at the problem. First, we need to find out what is causing that problem.
Spraying weeds is, to a large extent, like treating a symptom, right? It's a lot like if you go to the dentist and you have this aching toothache. You all can imagine it, right? You imagine the worst toothache you've ever had, the side of your face is throbbing, you're in massive amounts of pain, and you're thinking, oh, and you go to the dentist and you know the dentist is going to help you, and the dentist says, here, take these. They give you 3 Advil, right? Take these, right? And you, okay. So you go home, pain subsides for a while, and then what? Comes right back, doesn't it? Pain comes right back, your face is throbbing again. And to a large extent, that's what we've been doing with weeds. We like to spray weeds. We spray them, and we turn our back. They pop up. We look again, we spray them, they die. We turn our back, they pop up. We look at the weeds, we spray them, they die. We turn our back, weeds pop up, we spray them, they die. Then the weeds pop up, and we die. You see how this works? And that happens over and over again. And it's because fundamentally we're like giving it Advil. We're treating the symptom of the problem. And so EBIPM is really geared towards trying to understand what the underlying causes of the problem. Why do we have weeds? What is happening from an ecological standpoint to allow the weeds to dominate and invade? And what can we do about it? And so EBIPM is really the notion of moving from treating a symptom to treating the actual cause. So if you went to the dentist and you had this throbbing side of your face, the dentist might give you Advil, might give you Novocaine, but by the same token, the dentist would root around in there, find out what's causing the agony that you're in, and take care of it. And then send you home, and then when the Advil wears off, because they've addressed the underlying cause of the problem, the pain doesn't come back. So that's what the basic notion of EBIPM is really moving from the idea of treating the symptom, killing the weed, to, okay, understanding what the underlying cause of the problem is and the invasion and dominance. And while we're killing the weed, I'm not against killing weeds, but while we're killing the weed, we also try to address the underlying reasons the weeds can invade and dominate. And when we do that, when we back off from killing the weed, the likelihood that the weeds will come back is much less.
Too often, land managers see a weed invasion and simply decide on a treatment, hoping that treatment will work. But weed invasions pose complex problems which require more than a simple solution. EBIPM uses ecology, the fundamental science behind land management, to guide the decision-making process.
If you were building a bridge over a river, you could go down there with all your tools and you could apply them the way you thought best, and chances are it would look like a roller coaster over that. But if you really wanted to build a bridge that was sustainable and would carry the amount of weight you wanted it to carry for the amount of time you wanted it to carry it, you would actually go to someone who has an underlying basis in the science behind bridge building, which would be physics. And they have principles and concepts of physics that they use to design a bridge that will hold a certain amount of weight for a certain amount of time. And so you would use this engineered plan to come out, and then you would use your tools to do what the plan says for you to do to build that bridge. And in land management, it's the same thing. More often than not, we say, hey, I know, let's put plateau here, let's put here, let's seed here, let's do this. But we really aren't basing it on the ecological principles that we need to base it on. And so what EBIPM is just a decision method that uses principles of ecology to help you make the decision as to what you should do and what combinations of things you should do.
The EBIPM model includes several essential elements, which we'll cover during the next several minutes. But first, it's important to know what you want to achieve for your land and how to approach it.
Most weed problems are complex problems. Now, when we're dealing with a complex problem, our approach is not going to be as simple as looking up an answer on Google.
Baseball great Yogi Berra once said, "If you don't know where you're going, you'll end up someplace else." This is especially true with weed invasions. If you don't have a defined goal for where you want to be with your land, how can you get there? Clear goals and well-defined objectives will improve your chances for success and will help guide the collection of information so you can make necessary changes in your treatments. Clear goals and well-defined objectives will help you get where you want to go with your land.
A goal to me, simply put, is where we want to be. A plant community that would fulfill all of the expectations that I have from a management standpoint. That's the goal. That plant community is the goal. Plant community, it's where we want to be. Objectives are a little different. I think of objectives as the reasons we're not there yet. Okay? Objectives relate to problems that keep us from realizing this goal plant community in the present tense. And if we accomplish all of our management objectives and we've done proper management planning, theoretically we'll be at our goal plant community.
Before you head out and start managing, it's essential to know what your goals and objectives are. Take the time to think out and write down the goal of where you want your land to be and each of the objectives that will get you there. Once you've set your goals and objectives, the first step toward restoring land is knowing what the current situation is. It's essential to know what's going on in a plant community if we want to be able to improve or restore that plant community. EBIPM provides the ecological strategy to guide you through this process.
What an ecologically-based strategy does is to allow us to understand the problem. And that's, to me, the most common mistake that we make on rangelands, is not understanding what's going on to begin with. Okay? Why is that weed there? Why is it there to begin with? What allows it to persist in that plant community and outcompete more desirable species? And based on that knowledge, what the heck can we do about it that makes ecological sense?
Most government agencies are in the process of implementing the rangeland health assessment as protocol because of its value in identifying current conditions. EBIPM takes this assessment just a bit beyond that.
What we've tried to do is say, okay, we want to take it a step further, and we want to start looking at it in terms of ecologically based.
From simply telling us the current conditions, we've enhanced this assessment to tell us what ecological processes are in need of repair. This allows us to identify the causes for the plant community change, and once we know that, we can treat the cause of the problem rather than continuing to cover up the symptom. The three causes of plant community change are site availability, and species performance. Site availability is just that. Is there a site available for desired plants to grow in the area you want them? An important aspect of site availability is understanding an area's history.
We know that cultivated areas typically end up with more weedy species, less perennial grasses and native species growing on them. They can have altered plant and soil relationships, and they can have lower infiltration rates.
Understanding that history can tell you why the land is in its current condition. These current conditions and site availability are directly related to disturbance.
Disturbance is the central process that allows us to manage site availability. We can either reduce disturbance or increase disturbance.
Disturbance is a change in the usual environmental conditions and can be natural or human-caused. Wildfire, flood, insect infestation, or any human disruption such as fire, construction, or agriculture are all types of disturbance. One key with site availability is to use disturbance to create safe sites.
A safe site is an area that's conducive to seed germination and seedling establishment.
When disturbance occurs, it often opens up areas to new or different plants by creating a change in conditions. So, one way to direct plant communities is to control these disturbances to favor desired species.
We're going to have a certain level of disturbance in order to create safe sites for desired species to establish and for them to do well. But we also know it's a fine line between how much disturbance we're going to do, because as we increase the amount of disturbance, we increase the availability of nutrients in the system, and the weeds, because they have such rapid growth rates, love nutrients. So we're really working with this really fine area where we know we need to scuff the surface so that we can have a seed bed for the seeds we're going to put in, but we don't want to rip it apart because we know that's going to favor the weeds.
The second cause of plant community change is species availability, which simply put, deals with the availability and establishment of various species. The processes that affect species availability are dispersal, or the spread of seeds, and reproduction. Prevention is by far the most efficient and cost-effective management of weeds, and it relates directly with species availability. Prevention of invasion is far more economical than restoration. $1 spent on early intervention prevents at least $17 in later expenses. So initial efforts of weed management should always focus on prevention first.
The most effective thing you can do is keep the areas that don't have the weeds from getting them. And that's something you can do. And when people tell me, I don't have any money, I don't have whatever, I don't have, it is so difficult to restore these systems and so expensive that the justification for prevention programs is huge. And I believe that we've largely tried to implement prevention programs, but we've underestimated how comprehensive they actually have to be successful.
There's a lot to worry about in preventing the invasion of unwanted plants. One of the best ways to cover all your bases of prevention is to organize a weed prevention area. A weed prevention area provides a venue for a community to rally together and share the responsibility for protecting and conserving rangeland ecosystems for continued livestock production, wildlife habitat, and to safeguard rural economies. For more on starting a weed prevention area, visit www.ebipm.org.